Are we really living the apocalypse? In every corner of the planet, the echoes of a humanity on the brink of collapse seem to grow louder with each passing day. Political uncertainty, climate change, pandemics, economic crises, and rising social violence appear to be piecing together a puzzle whose final image is dark and unsettling. The question that is increasingly asked is, are we living the apocalypse? In the collective imagination, the apocalypse evokes images of global catastrophes, chaos, mass destruction, and the end of humanity as we know it. But what does the word apocalypse really mean? The word comes from the Greek apokalypsis, meaning revelation or unveiling. So, rather than an abrupt end, the apocalypse can be interpreted as a moment of revelation, in which hidden truths and realities that humanity has ignored for a long time are unveiled. Could it be that, in some way, we are already in this phase of revelation? And if the signs of the end are already here, as predicted in ancient sacred texts? One of the most well-known prophecies about the end of the world is found in the Apocalypse of St. John, the last book of the New Testament of the Bible. It describes a series of cataclysmic events, among which the dreaded Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse stand out. Each of these riders represents a devastating aspect of what could be the end of times. In the vision John receives on the island of Patmos, these riders are sent as part of a series of divine judgments on humanity, as a response to the corruption and sin in the world. Today, as we observe the events unfolding around us, we might ask, are these the riders already riding among us? Could it be that the biblical omens are being fulfilled before our eyes? The current reality, a sign that the end is near? We live in times of great uncertainty. In a world as interconnected as ours, any major event can trigger a chain reaction that affects millions of people. Geopolitical tensions are rising, natural disasters are becoming more frequent and devastating, and humanity is struggling to find answers to an environmental crisis that threatens our future. In the midst of all this, the desire to find meaning or a deep explanation for what is happening becomes more urgent. Human history is filled with periods of great crises, and throughout the centuries, many have interpreted calamities and moments of suffering as signs that the end of the world is near. Religions, particularly Christianity, have served as a vehicle for interpreting these events through prophecies. The Book of Revelation, in particular, is the most well-known source of this apocalyptic interpretation. Within its pages, not only are the terrible judgments that will fall upon humanity described, but also the arrival of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, whose figures have become some of the most representative symbols of the end times. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. In chapter 6 of Revelation, John describes a vision in which he sees Christ, the Lamb of God, opening the first 4 seals of a book sealed with 7 seals. Each time a seal is opened, a rider appears with a devastating mission. The 4 horsemen symbolize different aspects of the destruction that will fall upon humanity in the last days. First horseman, the white horse. The first rider appears riding a white horse. He is described as holding a bow and wearing a crown. The passage says, "And I looked, and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer." Revelation 6 verse 2. This rider has been interpreted in various ways throughout history. Some believe he represents Christ himself, who is described as the conqueror over evil. However, others interpret this rider as a symbol of false prophets or political leaders who, under the guise of peace, seek to impose their dominance over the world. In the context of our contemporary reality, this writer may reflect how world leaders sometimes use promises of peace and stability as a facade to consolidate power, while behind their actions may lie imperialistic or authoritarian ambitions. The white horse could symbolize ideological manipulation and war disguised as peace, a phenomenon not unfamiliar to modern times. Second horseman, the red horse. The second rider rides a red horse and holds a great sword. His mission is to bring war and violence to humanity. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Revelation 6 verse 4. The red horse represents war and conflict. In the modern context, we can see how military tensions are increasing, with armed conflicts occurring in various parts of the world and the constant threat of a global war. This writer symbolizes the endless violence that threatens to destroy humanity, a persistent evil that has marked our history but is now amplified by access to weapons of mass destruction and the possibility of nuclear war. Third horseman, the black horse. The third rider rides a black horse and holds a balance in his hand. This rider symbolizes famine and scarcity, a scourge that has plagued humanity throughout history and that, in the modern context, seems to be becoming more prevalent due to the global economic crisis and the depletion of natural resources. The biblical text says, "And I looked, and behold a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." Revelation 6 verses 5 to 6. The balance in the rider's hand symbolizes scarcity and the unequal distribution of resources. In a world where poverty and inequality are rising, this rider reflects one of the greatest crises humanity faces: hunger. Hunger, not only as a lack of food, but also as a consequence of economic inequality and social injustice. Isn't the modern world witnessing a growing divide between the rich and the poor, while natural resources are being irresponsibly consumed? Fourth horseman, the pale horse. The fourth and final rider is the most feared, as he symbolizes death. This rider rides a pale horse and is followed by a retinue of Hades. His mission is to end human life, bringing plagues, pestilence, and other forms of death. The text says, "And I looked, and behold a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth." Revelation 6 verse 8. This rider is a direct representation of mass death that can come in many forms, through diseases like pandemics, through war, or from the misery caused by hunger and lack of resources. In a world where diseases spread quickly and overpopulation is becoming an ever more serious reality, the rider of death seems closer than ever. Are we already living in the end times? The four horsemen of the apocalypse are more than just a representation of future disasters, they are symbols of destructive forces that are already operating in our world. Whether we see them as literal manifestations or as symbols of existential and spiritual problems, the reality is that the signs they represent are evident in our daily lives. Political tensions, violence, economic crises, hunger, and diseases are all part of the current global landscape. Reflecting on these images and comparing them to contemporary events, the question arises: are we truly living in the apocalypse? Or, rather, are we on the doorstep of it? Perhaps the end will not manifest as a sudden and spectacular catastrophe, but as a gradual process. Leave us your comments and share your thoughts on the topic. Until next time.